Hi boys and girls, how are you doing? I hope that you guys are well, and if you need anything you can email me. I'm going to read to you today Two of Everything by Lily Toy Hong, and I really love this story. This is actually, I think, one of my favorite stories. And so let's go ahead and find out and see what happens. Two of Everything. Once long ago, in a humble little hut lived Mr. Hottock and his wife, Mrs. Hottock. They were old and very poor. What little they ate came from their tiny garden. In a lucky year when the harvest was plentiful, Mr. Hottock had a little extra to take to the village. There he traded turnips, potatoes, and other vegetables for clothing, lamp oil, and fresh seeds. One spring morning, when Mr. Hottock was digging in his garden, his shovel stuck something hard. Puzzled, he dug deeper into the dark ground until he came upon an ancient pot made of brass. "How odd," said Mr. Hottock to himself, "to think that I have been digging here all these years and never came upon this pot before. I will take it home. Maybe Mrs. Hottock can find some use for it." Sorry, boys and girls are trying to get it so that you guys can see it here. So there he is, he's digging. The pot was big and heavy for old Mr. Hottock. As he stumbled along, his purse, which contained his last 5 gold coins, fell to the ground. He tossed it into the pot for safekeeping and staggered home. His wife greeted him at the door. "Dear husband, what a strange pot!" Mr. Hottock explained how he found the pot. "I wonder what we can do with it," said Mrs. Hottock. "It looks too large to cook in and too small to bathe in." As Mrs. Hottock leaned over to peer into the pot, her hairpin, the only one she owned, fell in. She felt around in the pot, and suddenly her eyes grew round with surprise. "Look," she shouted, "I've pulled out 2 hairpins exactly alike, and 2 purses too." Sure enough, the purses were identical, and so were the hairpins. Inside each purse were 5 gold coins. Mr. Hottock was so excited he jumped up and down. "Let's put my winter coat inside the pot. If we are lucky again, the pot will make 2 coats, and then we will both stay warm." So into the pot went 1 coat, and out came 2 coats. They began to search the house and quickly put more things into the magical pot. "If only we had some meat," wished Mr. Hottock, "or fresh fruit, or one delicious sweet cake." Mrs. Hottock smiled. "I know how we can get anything we want," she said. She put their 10 coins into 1 purse, then threw it into the pot. She pulled out 2 purses with 10 coins in each. "What a clever wife I have!" cried Mr. Hottock. "Each time we do this, we will have twice as much money as before." The Hottocks worked late into the night, filling and emptying the pot until the floor was covered with coins. Morning came, and off went Mr. Hottock with a long list of things to buy in the village. Instead of vegetables, his basket was full of gold coins. Mrs. Hottock finished all of her chores and sat down to enjoy a cup of tea. She sipped her tea and admired the brass pot. Then, with a grateful heart, she knelt and embraced it. "Dear pot, I do not know where you came from, but you are my best friend." She stooped over the pot to look inside. At that very moment, Mr. Hotdog returned. His arms were so full of packages that he had to kick the door open. Bang! Mrs. Hotdog was so startled she lost her balance and fell head first into the pot. Oh no! Mr. Hotdog ran over and grabbed his wife's legs. He pulled and tugged until she slid out onto the floor, but when he looked at the pot again, he gasped. 2 more legs were sticking straight out of it. Naturally, he took hold of the ankles and pulled. Out came a second person. She looked exactly like his wife. Oh my goodness. That was actually the first page. Oh. The new Mrs. Hotdog sat silently on the floor looking lost. But the first Mrs. Hotdog cried, "I am your one and only wife. Put that woman back into the pot right now." Mr. Hotdog yelled, "No, if I put her back, we will not have 2 women but 3. 1 wife is enough for me." He backed away from his angry wife and tripped and fell headfirst into the pot himself. Both Mrs. Hotdogs rushed to rescue him. Each grasped an ankle, and together they pulled him out. There were 2 more legs in the pot, so they pulled out the other Mr. Hotdog too. Just what does one Mr. Hotdog have for another? Just what use does one Mr. Hotdog have for another? Mr. Hotdog cried angrily. "This pot is not as wonderful as we thought it to be. Now even our troubles are beginning to double." But his wife had been thinking while he was yelling. "Calm down," she said. "It is good that the other Mrs. Hotdog has her own Mr. Hotdog. Perhaps we will become best of friends. After all, we are so alike. He will be a brother to you and she a sister to me. With our pot, we can make 2 of everything, so there will be plenty to go around." Oh my goodness. And that is what they did. The Hotdogs built 2 fine new homes. Each house had identical teapots, rice bowls, silk embroideries, and bamboo furniture. From the outside, the houses looked exactly alike, but there was one difference. Hidden in one house was a big brass pot. Of course, the Hotdogs were always very careful not to fall in it again. The new Hotdogs and the old Hotdogs did become good friends. The neighbors thought that the Hotdogs had grown so rich that they decided to have 2 of everything, even themselves. Oh my goodness. So that story is so funny. So if you put 2 in the pot, how many come out of the pot? 4. And I will send a little sheet that you can do an exercise with that for math. And my kids are sleeping right now, and I figured I should take advantage of this time to read to you guys because they're asleep. So hopefully you will get to see them, and it's quiet because the house is kind of noisy when they're awake. But here, let me show you. I'll show you guys my dogs because I've talked to you guys about Sadie and Layla. So let me get down here. Sadie, come on, Layla. Layla, come here. Hang on. Oh, come on, Layla. Layla. Oh, sorry guys. Here, there's Layla. And then here, I probably should have just taken the phone with me. And then here's Sadie. Let's see, Sadie. There she comes. Oh, Sadie. It's hard to find her. Oh, I can't find her in the thing. There she is. Anyway, well, I hope you guys are doing well again. And stay safe. And hopefully we'll see you guys soon. Bye. I'm thinking about you.